very much. So thank you for joining. As Anthony said, hopefully you're going to learn some new things today. But what we've tried to do with this presentation is show you some of the things that actually when Anthony and I are working with our clients, we notice are maybe some simple features that make a big difference, but actually are very overlooked, and a lot of people don't use them or don't even know about them. And we're going to introduce a lot of the new features that are coming to Microsoft 365. I did put this presentation together about 2 weeks ago, so there's probably about 100 more that's already in Teams at the moment, but I'm going as quick as I can to keep up with it. So hopefully you'll see some of the new features that you haven't seen already that you can use as well. So first of all, chat in Microsoft Teams. I assume if I ask everybody to raise their hands, I assume everybody's using chat, but is everybody here using chat in Microsoft Teams? Yeah, some people nodded their head. It's controversial. OK, cool. Well, the thing within Microsoft Teams chat that we just wanted to go over were some of the features that Anthony and I, when we were talking about the features that we find most useful, we sort of listed. And the first one is the fact that we can mention people in chats. So nowadays, you probably have a number of individual chats between people, but you probably also have a few group chats. What we can do within a group chat now, and if I just have one here, is we can actually tag people. So you can tag individuals. So if it was between myself, Anthony, and Barry, I could tag Anthony. But what you can also do is tag everyone now. And that's a feature that we felt was missing for quite some time with Microsoft. But if we now just type @ if it works for me, and then everyone, they will get that notification. The great bit about this is if they have the chat muted, which is another great feature if people are, talking quite a lot when you're trying to get your head down. Even if they tag you, you'll still get that notification. So if it is something that you should see, you'll get the notification, so you're not missing it, even if you have that chat muted there as well. And the other thing that we thought we'd touch on here is how you're able to add whiteboards to chat. So between Anthony and I, we're constantly working on these presentations, how we're working on client presentations, and how we're working on the Microsoft 365 journey that we're working on with clients as well. And that takes a lot of innovation. What's coming to Microsoft 365? What do we need to start talking about? So what we can do within chat now is under Add a Tab, we can add a whiteboard. And for Anthony and I, it's not showing now because we're in our demo tenant, but in our real environment, we have a whiteboard, and we regularly go there, add in comments, add screenshots, and have almost like an agenda of what we need to add to an art of the possible or a training session. And it just gives us that space to come together, to innovate and collaborate as well. Do you have anything to add to chat, Anthony?
No, I just find it's a very useful function that we have, and since we've started using this, as Megan said, we have one whiteboard that we just share quite frequently, and that means you can just go back and look at stuff you've done in the past as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Perfect. So now, moving on to meetings, probably one of the biggest parts of Microsoft Teams, and definitely a growing part with all the different types of meetings that you can introduce now. We're not going to dig into all of the meeting features that you have today. A lot of them you should hopefully know about. We're just going to go over those key ones that we use. But before we get started, the thing I think I would just note here is when you are starting a new meeting, just have a look at all the different types of meetings you can now create. So before, I think we just had meetings. We've had webinars for a while now. But there's things like town halls. If you've got Teams Premium, you can now do virtual appointments and control content meetings. So I could talk about that for the rest of the day, but you guys probably want to hear some other people talk as well. But I do recommend just heading over to Microsoft, having a look at what those different meetings are, and utilizing them. They all have different features for a reason. But if I go into booking a meeting with Anthony now, and I'll book it here just because it needs to be finished at some point. One of the biggest things that we get asked when people book meetings in Teams is actually, how do I know when people are available? We do have the ability to use the scheduling assistant at the top here. It's never the easiest way to look at it. Once you have multiple people, it's hard to see which day you're on, etc. But what we can do here, if I just put this in as test and add Anthony, With our internal colleagues, it actually shows us if they're available or not. So underneath Anthony's name here, I can see at the time I've booked this meeting, he's free. If he wasn't available at that time, it would say he was busy, and it would give me these suggested times here that I could book the meeting with him at a time that works for both of us. And if you add multiple people into this meeting that are your colleagues internally, it will show those scheduled suggested times as well. So you can pick the time that works best for you, and it just takes the hassle out of the back and forth or going into their calendars. It just prompts you to find that time that works for you. And adding channels, this is one that Anthony and I, it's probably one of our biggest bugbears, I would probably say, is adding channels. We have channels for a reason. It's for your team to come together, your project team, your departmental team to come together and have that space for everything to do with that project or that piece of work you're working on. And then everyone does all of their notes, all of their planner in there, and everything goes into that channel, and then they just forget to add the meeting. So then when you go try and find the meeting recording, it's not in that channel. So if you take one thing away today, it's whenever you're booking a meeting, if you have a relevant channel for that team that are getting together, add the channel in, the recording will be saved into there, the transcript, the meeting recap that we're going to go over will all be saved within that channel, which means it's easy to find, it's in the relevant place, and you don't have that horrific bit where you're either trying to go into stream or you're going back saying, I swear it was 3 weeks ago, and you're in your calendar and you can't find it, and then you have to try and find it somewhere else.
I see the channel is almost like your filing cabinet for everything to do with that subject. We talk a little bit later in the presentation, we'll talk about types of teams. And in a departmental team, we'll have channels for the individual projects that are taking place within that team at that time. And if we can make sure we associate the meetings with that channel, that project that's going on, then it's, as Megan said, it's so much easier to go and find the information, find the meeting and find the recaps from the meetings and the recordings for the meetings because they're filed in the right place.
Yeah, definitely. So I've just added Anthony to that meeting. We're going to jump in now and we're going to pray that this works because it is all live demos, and realistically there's probably 300 people here using the Wi-Fi at the same time as I am, so we'll see how that goes. But the first thing that we want to talk about before I jump in is avatars. So this is one that when Michelle Bowman was here last year presenting on this stage, he spoke about avatars, that they were coming, and now they're here. And Anthony and I are still slightly skeptical as to how they're going to be used. I'm someone who always has my camera on. Lucky people on a meeting with me always getting to see this face. But there are some people who just don't like to have their camera on for one reason or another, and that's completely understandable. But having avatars actually just opens up that next level that whilst they're not happy to have their face on camera, you're not then just staring at their initials on the screen. We can turn on our avatars by coming to Effects and Avatars, and then I've already got mine set up here. I will be honest, I did spend a good time trying to make this look like myself. I think I did an okay job. It's got a fringe, that's the main bit. So you can set up your avatar, and then I can join this as an avatar. So avatars are available now. I do recommend people go and set them up. The worst bit is when you're trying to join a meeting with an avatar and you haven't set yours up already, and then you're just like, hold on guys, I'm just playing. Oh, I don't want grey hair, I'm just going to set mine up with this. And then you're not fully focused in that meeting as well. So and then you get Anthony, who doesn't even take any time to make his look like him. As you can see,
I didn't take any time. I didn't put quite enough grey hair in, and as someone who celebrated their 60th birthday last week, it's as good as I'm going to, as much time I'm going to waste on putting my face together. But yeah. One of my pet hates is people who join meetings and then do not put their camera on or put something on. Nothing worse and nothing more difficult to try and interact with than just two initials, on a screen. So if you ever have a meeting with me, I will always say, is it possible you can turn your camera on? And I know some people don't like to do that, but I think it just increases the quality of the communication far more. I noticed very early on that people who've got cameras on are the people I'll interact with. The people who are, have just got the initials there, it's very difficult to actually interact with them.
Yeah, definitely. And you can make your avatars do things like dabbing. If anyone here has ever dabbed on a Teams call, please put your hand up, because you have! Oh my God, I didn't think anyone would ever use it, but okay, wait, no, anyway. Yeah, but you can get your avatar to interact with you, and as you can hopefully see in the bottom corner, as I'm talking and it's picking up my voice, it is moving. It has a little bit more of that life moment. The only bit that I would love to see integrated in the future is if I did put my hand up, because I talk with my hands a lot, that the avatar also starts doing that, because at the moment it's clearly not replicating what I am, but maybe in the future.
Yeah, and to stop any feedback here, I've turned mine off, so when I move my lips, it's Megan's voice that's coming out, which is a little bit embarrassing.
There you go. So that's avatars. The next thing that we want to talk about was live captions. So live captions have been around for a while now, but what is nice with live captions is the advancement that we're seeing with them. So if I was to turn on my live captions now, I can choose my spoken language, which is English. And these will pop up for me. But what we also have the ability to do now is we have the ability to change the language, hopefully, if they pop up. And this is when I say live demos don't work. But what we will have at the bottom is when my live captions finally appear, and I click settings, I can come down to show the caption language. So actually, if I was on a meeting with somebody who was French and they were speaking French, I would not have a clue what they were saying, but I could change my caption language to English. So whilst they're speaking French in the meeting, my captions would appear in English. Alternatively, I could be speaking in English and they could change their caption language to French. So if anybody does have any international clients or international colleagues or partners, this is a great feature. It means that you can communicate in your own language. May feel slightly unnatural to begin with, but we don't have as much of that language barrier where someone's trying to speak in their second language, or where you're trying to, communicate and figure out what they're saying as well. So a really nice feature there as well. I'm just going to turn them off because they will start appearing and we'll see if they're correct or not.
So I was going to say the translation functionality is part of the Teams Premium license, as are a few things that we'll talk about today, but I know it's worthwhile exploring that. You only need to buy one Teams Premium license per person who's using it to take advantage of those features. And yeah, there's some good stuff in there.
Yeah, good point, thank you. And now talking about sharing. So if I was to ask the room here, and I'm looking at Ruben now because he knows the answer, but if I was to ask the people here, how is the best way to share a PowerPoint in a Teams meeting? What would the answer be? From PowerPoint? Yeah, which ties into Teams, good. Anyone else? PowerPoint Live, who said that? You get an extra addition into one of our quizzes because that is the right answer. So when we share PowerPoints, one of the worst things that I ever see is somebody clicking share, clicking window, and then clicking PowerPoint. And then you see all of their slides on the side, and you see their speaker notes underneath, and you're like, yeah, this isn't a great experience for me. I can't see the slide fully. What we should be doing is opening up PowerPoint Live here, because what we get if we share via PowerPoint Live is I, as the speaker, get all the tools I need to have my presentation ready. I get all my speaker notes here ready for me. I get my presentation showing, and I get the next slides that are coming up in the folder here as well. And I also get some additional tools like a laser pointer. But for Anthony, he doesn't see any of these tools. All Anthony sees right now is the screen that I'm sharing. So for the presenter, for the attendee, we both get the best possible experience to absorb that knowledge and concentrate on that meeting rather than concentrating on, oh, what's that slide coming up next, and not paying attention to what's being presented. So please, please start using PowerPoint Live. We can share it via Teams, so if share it via PowerPoint, sorry. So if you have PowerPoint open, you've got the Teams button in the top right-hand corner. If you share it via there, it will share the same experience, and again, presenter gets the best experience, and so does the attendee as well. And sharing goes way beyond what it used to as well. What we can do now is if I share my screen, and if I was to share a window. What window shall I share? We'll go for this one now. We now have the ability to collaborate live on screen sharing as well. So if I was to be sharing a website, so Cascade have been going through a big rebrand at the moment. One of the new things that you will see as of Tuesday next week is our new website. I've been working a lot on that, but I might be choosing to share the careers page with Jen in the audience at the moment. And actually, if I'm not in the same room as Jen and we can't be showing each other things, Jen might want to highlight something to me. So with Collaborate Live now, we can share our screen and we'll get a tool at the toolbox at the top of the screen here, which will allow you to add things like post-it notes, add text, add annotations to that screen that everyone in that meeting can see at the same time. So Jen could actually spot and say, I don't really like this picture. I would know exactly what picture she's talking about because she would just be annotating her screen and it would appear on mine. So Teams sharing and the collaboration in Teams meeting is advancing quicker than I think we ever thought it would, and probably quicker than we need at the moment. But hopefully you can see how features like that can be useful as well. Do you have anything to add to that, Anthony?
No, all
No?
good.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. So I'm trying to rattle through this because I'm aware of time, and there's still so much more to go. So if I just leave this meeting now, the next great thing introduced from Microsoft Teams recently is Intelligent Recap. And I believe this is a Teams premium feature
Correct.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you have hosted a meeting recently, and if I go back to mine and Anthony's last week, and we open that up, with Intelligent Recap, what we now have the ability to do is, and mine's not showing, I knew this was going to happen. It was showing when I checked it last week. But what we should be able to do...
Go back to one you didn't share with a channel, I think.
I knew this was going to happen. There we go. Is if we come to the top here, under Recap, we can see the recording. That's been there for a while. But the thing with Intelligent Recap that we can see is, first of all, who spoke when. So if we had a meeting, and this was meant to be a meeting of a group, and we wanted everyone to contribute equally, we might be able to see that Anthony's actually taken over that meeting. He's constantly been speaking. And maybe we need to pick up on that, because maybe Jen, my colleague, didn't actually get a chance to voice her opinion there. We can also see what files were shared. And we get a summary of that meeting. So we can see here that Anthony and Debbie were discussing their avatars, they were taking notes during the meeting, and they discussed things like booking the venue and the team lunch. So if I missed that meeting, I can just jump on and see that Anthony and Debbie had that conversation. I could also come here and see the mentions, which there were no mentions for me, so I have no tasks that were given to me. So it's a really nice way, if you are just trying to catch up on that meeting, to go in, see what's been spoken about during there a lot quicker than having to either traipse through the transcript or, even worse, watch the recording back as well, which could have taken an hour or so.
Yeah. I was going to say, Ruben, I don't know if you've been using this and throughout the IOPP. Give me a few words on how that's going. Brilliant. Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks. Anyone else using that functionality in Teams Premium? No, it's worth investigating. You get it, one license. It's fairly cost effective. Just try it and see how you can use that effectively across the business, because I think it's a first of those real time saver things from Copilot that I've seen.
Yeah. Now, Microsoft 365 is clearly more than just Teams, so we're going to jump away from Teams specifically now and talk about some of the wider applications within Microsoft 365. So who here has used Planner before? Yeah, quite a few people, nice. Planner is from the looks of it and from what was announced at Microsoft Ignite, Planner's going through a little bit of a change at the moment. We had Planner and we had To-Do. So Planner is for those team-based task management sort of projects that you're working on, and To-Do is your own to-do list that you have for tasks that don't belong in a planner. At some point, we brought those together to be called Tasks by Planner and To-Do, and we now seem to be moving back to Planner, and I'm not sure if To-Do is just living in Planner now. Unfortunately, no one told me specifically what the plan is, but I'm putting some pieces together, so don't take my word for it. I was about to say take it, don't take my word for it. But Planner is a great application to allow people to manage tasks between a team. So, for example, planning this event or planning the rebrand that we've just been through, for example, we have multiple people working on it and doing multiple different things. And whilst we did have regular meetings to catch up on those, we also needed a way to just monitor who's doing what task, who needs to be working on what, and of course, what the deadlines are. So within the channel here, we've got our planner task, which allows us to set up all the buckets, we can assign the tasks, and we can do this within this planner. Now, what is great about Planner is there is some new functionality coming to it. So has anybody used the workflows functionality with Planner and Teams before? I think there's one hand up, yeah. So what we can do within here, if I come to my post tab here and click the ellipsis just in the top corner here, I can now click Workflows. So what is great is I can come in and I can say when a planner has changed status, so maybe when somebody marks it as complete or in progress, let the team know that that's happening. So this is just a little bit of automation that's going to be posted into the team. We can say which team we want to notify in here, and then it's going to get me to set it all up. Oh. Which plan I want to monitor, so which one am I getting a notification from, what team do I want to notify, and then, all importantly, what channel, so if it was about the agenda, if it was about registrations, or just general there. Now that means that if I'm working on this project with 10 people, and somebody marks a task as complete, in progress, that team will just get a message on the post tab to say that that has been done. It just means that you haven't got to either comment on the task, comment on the team, or, God forbid, someone then emails to say, by the way, I've done this, and doesn't put it in the channel. It just takes that task out there, but keeps everybody up to date as well. And what we can also do is we can do workflows to say when somebody comments to do in a task in the team here, it automatically adds the task to the team as well, into Planner as well. So lots of automation coming with Planner in the future, and some of it already here as well.
Yeah, I think Planner's one of those things that we got very enthusiastic about to start with, and then it's a little bit clunky, and it was a little bit clunky. And I think Microsoft's kind of focus has now gone on to that, and there's a lot of investment going into that, and we're seeing little bits of the AI Copilot stuff sliding in there as well to make things a lot easier. We use it internally. The notifications off it are really, really good now, and as you adjust to using that, it becomes a really powerful tool. And I think this is one of the things with, one of the challenges with the Microsoft portfolio here is that you've got to keep up to date with things. If you train people at one particular point in time, and that's all they know, you can still often use these applications in their old clunky way, and you don't get to see the new functionality. So important thing for your users is this ongoing, continuing training, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
Definitely. And what is great is when I spoke about intelligent recap, if there were tasks that were mentioned, so for example, if I said, Anthony, you've got to do X, Y, Z by this date, that would now automatically go into Planner as well via Loop, which is coming as well. So Loop components are starting to tie into Planner as well via the notes and all of that as well. so they will automatically be added. And then, of course, you've got so many planners going on. We have tasks by planner and to do, which is going into planner, which we can then just come down to assign to me and see all of your tasks across all of the planners and those loop components that we've tested here, all in that one list to make it very easy for you to manage as an individual as well. So the next scenario we wanted to talk about was how to use Power Automate. So you would have heard Mark Smith on the main stage talking about how we helped him use Power Automate for team-based management and how to create those teams and end those teams when needed. Power Automate is so much more than just that one scenario, and really challenge you to start thinking about what processes you have in your business that Power Automate can simplify and take off your hands slightly. So as an example here in our team, we have a form. So using Microsoft Forms under here, we have a form that if anybody wants to speak at our Adopt 365 event, they can fill in the form and submit that. Now, you know, everyone wants to speak at Adopt 365, so we're going to have hundreds of those coming through. What I don't want is I don't want them just sitting in an inbox for someone to then try and put into an Excel spreadsheet, and then making that a really hard thing to manage. So what we've got is when somebody fills in this form, and I'm just going to test it now, so really hope this works for me, and I'm just going to try and fill it in as quick as possible and submit that. We've set up a Power Automate in the background that says when somebody submits this form, send an email to the team to say that a form has been submitted, and then actually add that information to a Microsoft list. So if I now come into my Adopt 365 speaker tracker, and if everyone could keep their fingers crossed that this has worked for me, it is already in the list. So we've got the information already pulled through into here. The status is new, so anybody in our team that comes into this list now knows that this speaker application hasn't been progressed. No one's contacted them, they're still new, and then when I come in here, I can actually come in, I can update any of the values here, and I can comment on it for the team as well. So Power Automate is just making that process simpler. What is amazing with Power Automate at the moment is if I come in here, we already have Power Automate Copilot integrated into here. So you don't have to be someone who knows the nitty-gritty of Microsoft 365 or know how to do any coding, because I certainly don't. But what we can do here is I can just actually describe what I want it to do. So I could say, when someone completes a form, I'm going to try and do this as simple as I can, put into list. And you can see here, when a Microsoft form is submitted, add an item to a SharePoint list. It's going to build the bones of this Power Automate for me, so I don't have to do that, and I haven't got to work it out. And what is then nice is if I think, actually, I do want it to put it into the list, but I also want it to send an email, I can say send email. And once it comes up here, it will then correct it, and I can add to it, and like that. Rather than maybe changing it, I can add to it as well. So I do recommend, if you're using Power Automate, or even if you're not, check out Copilot and just start looking at some test flows that you can put together for your processes, because guaranteed they're probably going to save you a lot of time, a lot of headache, and with Copilot it just makes it so much easier now as well.
I was going to say, we've done that demonstration probably for the last 18 months, but we had to originally hand code that, transferring the username field across into the list and etc. Copilot has made that just one sentence in effect. Just, can you do this for me? And it did it straight away. So we were blown away by that, I think. And yeah, it's worth starting to, people who think, I want to link these things together, but I don't really understand Power Automate, and I don't know how to do that coding bit of it, then that's gone away, and it's pretty accurate and does a really good job for us.
Definitely. And I am now running out of time before I head into Anthony's next session. So there's so much more that we could show you with this. We have examples of how to use things like bookings. If anyone's ever had that thing where they're like, book a meeting with me, and then someone's like, when are you available? And you're like, Thursday? No. Friday? No. Monday? maybe, but only between 2 and 4. No, I'm only free at 11. Gone are those days. What you can create now is your own personal booking page, which is called Bookings with Me, which you can set up different services, so half-an-hour meetings, hour-long meetings, whatever those services need to be, we can create those, and when someone comes onto your booking page, when you share the link with them, they're able to see your availability, book the meeting with you. It automatically sends it as a Teams meeting, and just makes that process easier. What we can also do is set that up for teams, so not just individuals. So as an example, Anthony and I both do Adopt 365 demonstrations. To book those, it's much easier for us to send through the Adopt 365 booking page, and they get to choose who they want to do that with, between me and Anthony, which, bit of rivalry there, and then what availability it is depending on whose calendar they've selected there as well. So definitely recommend having a look at bookings, setting one up for yourself to begin with, testing it internally. We love to test internally before we go out to the wider market and find the bugs at that point. But test that out and then start looking at what meetings you need to book between a team that you can make that process easier as well.
So one of the ones we did that for was Doyle Clayton, who've been mentioned today a few times. They're solicitors, and they were offering a 15-minute consultation with people to talk about a particular subject. We were able to create a meeting for that, and then anyone who was interested, they could send that link to, and people could book in at a time where there was availability, and that just revolutionised that whole part of the business for them. A very simple thing, but the business was so much more efficient because people could choose the time that they wanted, that they're available to meet, and there'd always be someone from the team who's available there because it manages the availability of those appointments. And you can also do things like padding. So I want a 15-minute appointment, but I don't want anything 10 minutes before it, and I don't want anything 15 minutes after, within 15 minutes after it. So you've got time to write up your notes and things like that. So a very powerful bit of functionality that can revolutionize the way in which bookings are made within your business, and is very simple to set up.
Yeah, definitely. And we are out of time, and we've probably only shown you a quarter of what we would usually show in a normal Art of the Possible. So I do recommend, if anybody wants to engage their business leaders into Microsoft 365, or maybe just your champions that are using Microsoft 365 to talk about the new features and maybe the applications they're not yet using, myself and Anthony run a 2-hour-long Art of the Possible session, which is customized to you. So we'll meet with you before to hear what are you using and what aren't you using, and we'll focus on the bits you aren't using to really open up everybody's eyes to what the possibilities are within Microsoft 365, to help you get more from your investment and get more from your Microsoft 365 licensing. If anybody does want to book that, we're around today, but head over to the Microsoft 365 stand as well, and they'll be able to book that for you, and at least get your details, and we can get that booked in for you afterwards. I'm going to pass over to Anthony now, who has the next presentation. Whilst we do a laptop swap, has anybody got any questions that they would like to ask us so that Anthony's not just plugging in with you all watching him? No, we stunned them. No? All good? Oh, we have one here.
So we have a governance section in our organisation who hold board meetings with external people. Mm-hmm. They want to be able to record the meeting, but they don't want people to access the recording afterwards because they may have guests that have attended that meeting that they don't want to access the recording for security and all those sorts of reasons. Mm-hmm. Is there something that can be done?
So is that you want to be able to record the meeting, but you don't want that recording to be made available to all of the attendees of the meetings? Yeah, that's within the meeting policy settings. Oh, really? So we can talk through that afterwards if you want. But yes, it's an important point, and it's all around that security. Mm-hmm. Meeting recordings go into the meeting organizer's OneDrive, and we need to control access to that. So we've got all the policies available to enable us to do that.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, another question, and then we'll have to pass over to Anthony.
Have to? What's that? Reluctantly?
I know. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to have to leave, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Very simple one.
Yeah, it works in the background from the recording to pull that together. You'll notice that if if the meeting hasn't finished, it won't be there. It has to be past the end of the meeting time, which is when it triggers the back-end processing to go and, in effect, listen to that meeting and get that recording.
Perfect. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. I'm now going to pass over to Anthony, and I'll do your intro for you, Anthony, rather than doing your own.
Can you?
Anthony is now going to talk about where are you on your own Microsoft 365 journey. So Barry spoke in the session all around Microsoft 365 being a journey where there's no end point and that you're all on your own part of your journey. But actually what Anthony's going to talk about today is working out where you are on your journey, understanding that as what your journey looks like, where you are, and then understanding what your next steps should be aligned with your own business goals. So I'll pass over to Anthony Jarman.
Thank you, everyone. If anyone wants to leave now, they're more than welcome, but hopefully not. So this morning, we're going to talk about maturity in our Microsoft 365 environments.